What's up, guys? It is Sunday, which means it's time to continue on with the CD collection. We are still in the H's. I think this is video 74. I kind of I had an idea of what I was getting into when I started this CD collection, but at the same time, I didn't. I mean, I knew it was going to be a lot, but this is definitely making me put in some work. I know I look like hot trash. I'm having trouble moving today. I think that's just part of the issue that's going. I'm just moving very slow, but we're gonna knock this one out. We're in the H's, as I said, and we will probably be in the H's for at least one more video, and then I think half of the next video. But let's just go on and start. First up, we have some metalcore starting off. We have Himsa with Hell Horror. This one's pretty good. They kind of started leaning into this melodic death metal sound, and it really worked. I wish they would have explored the mellow death sound quite a bit more, especially in their follow up material, and even more so in their entire discography. But this turned out to be a pretty good album. It came out in 2006, so it's been out for quite some time. You will see a lot of times with my albums, my CDs. I have quite a few that have this kind of hole punch in the barcode. They were either promos given out by the label or distributed in grab bags and that type deal. Some people hate those hole punch barcodes and they avoid them like the plague. Some people they collect CDs. I'm mainly about the music. I like having the physical copy, but a hole punch and a barcode really just doesn't bother me at all. Then we have the follow up to that album from Himsa. This is Summon in Thunder. This one they kind of regressed. They definitely went back to that straight metalcore sound. I was a bit disappointed in this one, especially after hearing Hell Horror. I was hoping that this would be more aligned with that particular release, but it was not. And I think this is the last one that they put out. I should have, I mean, a giveaway. If you hadn't listened to this at all, there is a bonus disc that Century Media put in this case. It's like a little sampler, Century Media sampler back there, and the bands on that sampler were Arsonists Get All the Girls, awful, Suicide Silence, Himsa's on here, and Winds of Plague, and some others. But I mean that was the giveaway. I mean that it was just I should have known at that point. Of course, I got it without ever looking at that sampler. But this came out in 2007, so it's just kind of a sound of the times. There, it's very fitting in with what was popular and what was kind of the rage at that time period with deathcore and metalcore and so forth. Next up, we have some pagan black metal out of France. This is Hindveer, I believe is how you pronounce that, with Roth Singator Terranaria. Yeah. This is actually really good. I mean, this is some pretty aggressive, folky pagan black metal. I mean, it's pagan black metal to the core. This has been out for a while. Probably I don't know the exact. I'm not seeing a date on here. I'm gonna guess around 2008, 2007. I purchased this from Redstream Records, I believe on their eBay store many years ago. I used to do tons of Redstream Records eBay purchases, and this is one that I got from there. I really like this. I think it's the only full length that they ever put out, unfortunately, but I did like that one. It's just super raw, aggressive, filthy pagan black metal, and I dig it. Next up, we have some gore grind. Speaking of France, one of these bands featured on this split is from France. I believe the other band is from Mexico. The one from Mexico is Hypermenorrhea, and then the band from France is Disgorgement of Intestinal Lymphatic Separation. I just have this filed with the Hypermenorrhea band because they are listed first on the spine and they are the front on that artwork there. This is just some nasty gore grind, very fast paced, as a lot of gore grind is. It's about 22 tracks, and the entire split is like 20 something minutes. So I mean, you kind of know what you're getting with gore grind. I mean, it's just nasty, vile, putrid gore grind. Next up, this is a band out of the U.S. I believe they're out of New York. This is Hiraeth with ethnocentrism, and this is some folky pagan black metal. I was listening to this and I was digging it. It's a compilation of the band's span. I mean, it has some stuff off of their full length, some stuff off of their demo materials, and I was really digging it. It should have been a giveaway with that album title, with it being some pagan metal, but this is a pretty sketchy project. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where you're listening to something and then you find out that they have those sketchy ties, but you're enjoying the music. So you have to like nod your head in disapproval so people don't judge you just too terribly bad for listening to something like this. But I mean, I do like the music, so I mean, what can you do? Next up, we have a band out of Australia. This is Hiroshima Will Burn with To the Weight of All Things. This is some technical deathcore. Almost wants to lead in. That glare is killing me today as well. That's what I get for moving slow and running late. But um, it kind of leans into like almost a brutal deathcore at times. It teeters that line. It doesn't go full fledged into it, but definitely the technicality. It's like a fuse of technical death metal and deathcore, and it actually works pretty well. I can kind of vouch for this release that I do dig this one quite a bit. I got this for next to nothing at one point. It was released in 2009 on Lacerated Enemy. Is Lacerated Enemy still around? Anybody know that? I haven't heard much from them. Granted, I haven't, just picked up a lot of deathcore and that type stuff as of late, but I haven't heard much from Lacerated Enemy. I know that they were a pretty big player in that general realm of releases back then when I was picking that stuff up. Next up, we have a band out of Philadelphia. It makes sense that they're from Philly because Horror Pain Gore Death does not feature a lot of black metal on their label. So the fact that this band is out of Philly kind of strikes me is maybe one of the reasons that they got released through HPGD. This is Holland with Hellish Noise. I say black metal. They do have like a black and death metal sound, so that also plays a role as well. Pretty decent stuff. I've got this in a HPGD grab bag at one point. When I got it in the grab bag, I was a little surprised to see something that looked black metal coming out of that, but it was pretty good. Next up, we have a band. I forget what I think. This band is out of Germany. This is Hollensturm with Blitzkrieg. And despite that, I mean, you see that, and that doesn't look like it would just be like some super aggressive black metal. Just from, I mean, this glare is killing me today. It doesn't look like it would just be super aggressive black metal. Just looking at that case, but it absolutely is. I mean, this is just some nasty stuff. I'm seeing now. I got this. If you When you saw the room tour, the skull backdrop. Unfortunately, that's looking like it's going to pose a problem because I can see it popping up in the glare. I may end up having to get something to cover those skulls up when I record, just to so they're not glared on every single CD case that I show. Next up, this is a band out of here in the U.S. Kind of a power, uh, traditional slash power. They have some thrashy moments as well. This is Holy Grail with their debut full length entitled Crisis in Utopia. Pretty good. Definitely a solid debut full length. It's not bad at all. I like the one that came out, which we'll show in just next. The next album of theirs a bit more, but this one is a pretty decent debut. Not knocking it at all. It still has that replay value, and I still pull this one off and listen to it every now and again. And then next up, we have the one that came out in 2013. This one is entitled Ride the Void. I've spent a ton of time with this album. Around the time period that this came out, I had moved to Virginia and I lived there for about 6 months. I just kind of packed up and left and left behind everything. I was there for about 6 months. I mean, I gave it a shot. I ended up coming back with my tail between my legs, but sometimes in life you just have to do those type things. And this album, it was such a long drive from where I live to Virginia, but this played in the stereo in the car the entire drive. So there's a lot of feelings, mixed emotions tied up with this album as well. So that can kind of play a role with my feelings towards the release. But it is a super solid album. This is fantastic. I don't have their latest. I say their latest. I think it came out like 7 years ago, but I need to pick that one up. I kind of forget about this. I don't pull this one off as much anymore and listen to it because it kind of transports me back to a kind of a tough time. But it is a solid release. Next up, another band out of Germany. I don't know why I haven't picked up anything else from this band because I really like this release. They have a lot of material. They've been around for quite some time. This is Holy Moses with Strength, Power, Will, Passion. They are a kind of speed metal, thrash metal hybrid. Fantastic band, and I really dig. I mean, the vocals on this, the female vocals are on point, and it's just some nasty stuff, and I don't know why I haven't sought out more of their material. Like I think about it sometimes that I'm going to pull it out, and I end up throwing this one on, and it kind of motivates me to want to go find some of their other material, and I just have not done so. So and it's going to kind of be a theme for this particular section of the shelf, I'm afraid. Next up, talking about ones that have memories tied into it. I still remember purchasing this album. This had to have come out around 2008. It had to just because of what's tied up. I remember the album that I bought with this, and this is the debut from this band. So obviously it was my introduction to them. But I knew it was something that I was going to like. It was definitely different from what I was listening to at the time, sound wise, and I really dug this. This is Hooded Menace with Fulfill the Curse. Killer debut album. This is one of those bands that just seems like they get better and better with every release, but it's kind of neat to go back and listen to this one and just see where they started out. This one has a bit more raw production sound than some of their latter releases, but it is a stellar release. And I do remember the album that I purchased with this. We will get to that one shortly when we get into the K section of the CD case. So I mean of the CD shelves. So I will probably even revisit talking about this one in that particular video when we get there. But this is some killer stuff from Hooded Menace. That's another band that I need to grab more of their material because I kind of missed out on the albums that came after that, and I just kind of picked up with a couple of their later releases. Next up, we have Darkness Drips Forth from Hooded Menace. This one is awesome as well. This one is much better than I anticipated it being. This one came out in 2015, was released on Relapse Records. I actually think I was lucky enough to score this one in a Relapse Records grab bag at one point. So I definitely can't go wrong with that. That's probably one of the better releases that I've gotten through one of those Relapse grab bags because it's just some killer death doom. And then we have the one that came out last year. Fantastic album. As I said, this band just gets better with every release, and this was kind of the pinnacle of their career so far for me personally. This is the Tritonus Bell. I mean, I love everything about this album, from the artwork to the music. It's just, I mean, it's an essential. If you're into Death Doom, this is an essential album. This is one that you have to own. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just that good. Okay, move on. Let me situate some stuff around. Speaking of relapse grab bags, as I just did, this is another release that I got out of one of those relapse grab bags, and it didn't sound like I expected it to, just from the name of the band. I was pleasantly surprised with this. This is Hope Drone with Cloak of Ash. When I hear Hope Drone, I'm expecting droning doom metal, and I mean it is very atmospheric stuff, but it leans much more into a post black sound. Um, if you're familiar with the band, the Great Old Ones, It kind of has some moments that does remind me of that band as well. I really like this. They had a full length that came out in 2019, um, something void something, and that one is pretty awesome as well. I have not picked that one up, because every time I look to pick up that second full length, the price on it is astronomical. Most of the stuff has to be imported or is sold internationally, so the shipping prices beat me up as well. But at some point, I would like to own the follow up to this Hope Drone album because I really do like that. Next up, we have some Face Down Records releases coming up, and I know uh, a lot of you probably aren't real keen on that label, with it being a Christian label and it being a lot of metalcore and deathcore and that type stuff. This is a band that I really enjoyed everything from that I've heard so far. This is a band called A Hope for Home with Realists. They are kind of a post metal band, and I think maybe that's why this one, this band in particular, stuck out to me a little bit more. As you can see, those skulls are just reflecting on these dark album covers. I'm going to have to do something to rectify that in the future. But as I was saying, this is kind of post metal. At times leads into like post hardcore. There are some metalcore traces and stuff in this as well, but it's just a solid release. I don't know if I just liked it so much because it sounded a lot different than some of the other stuff that I was hearing in that, but I still own a lot of those face down releases that I was getting in those grab bags, so I can't knock it too bad because there's a lot of material that label was putting out that I did enjoy. And then I have I think this is the latest full length. I really don't know. I haven't kept up with this band. This is A Hope for Home with in Abstraction, and just more of that kind of post metal atmospheric sounding stuff, but it is a good release. And then the next band, I guess Hope is a common theme for Face Down Records bands. This one is kind of a um, melodic death metal band. This album I wasn't super big on. This is Hope for the Dying with Dissimulation. I mean, when you look at that artwork, minus the skulls that reflecting in it, I mean, you kind of, that doesn't look like something that, I mean, I never would have just grabbed this and listened to this. It's not something, just from the cover art, it's not something that I would have pulled off a shelf on a blind buy and been intrigued to check out just because of that. But it's pretty good. It's much better than I would have expected with the artwork. But the follow up to that is a super solid release. This is Hope for the Dying with Alethea, and this is just melodic death metal, almost like cinematic melodic death metal. If you're not a fan of the like overproduced, I don't even want to say overproduced, but like just super high production, cinematic style of mellow death, you're not going to like this. But if that's something that you can kind of listen to and get behind, I think you would dig this one. It is probably, I said this about the last band, but this is one of the better releases that I heard from those grab bags. It is some pretty solid stuff. I don't know if this band is even still around anymore. Not something that I just followed, stuck with, and followed it to to this day. Next up, we have one from Severed Records. I bought that big Severed Records, that 100 CD grab bag, and I was kind of getting burnt out, I think, just because there was so much brutal death metal. Trying to listen, 100 releases, and a lot of them sounded very similar. In my head, it gets to the point when you're listening to something like that over and over and over, you're like, all these albums sound the same, and unfortunately, that's a bad place to get into because there is a lot of variance and differentiation in those bands, and some of them, just because I was getting burnt out, weren't getting the kind of attention that they deserve. Because there's some really, man, that Severed roster, if you're into brutal and very, I mean, that brutal style of death metal, and that is a stacked label and lineup. The discography of that label is crazy good. And this is a band that I just didn't really give the attention at the time that it deserved, but this is a solid release. This is Horde Casket with Xenopocalypse, and I really admire this release from Horde Casket because some of their stuff kind of goes into that, focuses on like the gore and perverse and perversions, and this is more of a um, conceptual album, like a sci-fi conceptual album. I know a lot of brutal death metal bands, go into that sci-fi direction as well, but I just like this one. They pulled this one off quite well, and I really dig this one. And unfortunately, when I got this, I really just didn't give it the attention that it deserved. And I'm glad that I revisited this and gave it a listen because it's some pretty solid, just heavy stuff. Next up, I believe this band is out of Germany as well. A lot of German projects in this. I could be wrong. I mean, they may not, but I'm thinking this band is out of Germany, and I need to pick up some more of their material. It seems that, as I said, that's just kind of a theme for this album. I just dropped the CD. Oh, sorry, let's try that again. And that just kind of seems to be the theme for this album, for this video, is me needing to pick up more material from some of these projects. This is Horn with a term Hong, kind of more of that pagan style of black metal. I mean, obviously with that artwork there. And I've heard some of this band's other material, and I have not heard anything that I don't like. So I really don't know what my reasoning is for not having anything else up from them in my collection. This was from Northern Silence Productions, and I don't see the date. It's been out for quite some time, though. It was released through Northern Silence and distributed by Hell's Headbangers. So. Next up, this is a heavy, man, this is a heavy release. It's a dark, kind of oppressive, sludgy, thrashy, doomy release. This is Horn of the Rhino with Summoning Deliverance. If you haven't heard this, get on it. I mean, if you want to transport yourself to a very dark place and transport your psyche to a very oppressive place, and this is a good album for you. I mean, it's some sulfuric, heavy, uh, dark stuff, and I dig it. So definitely classy metal approved on Horn of the Rhino. Next up, one that I'm ashamed to say this is the only release that I own from this band. This is Horna with Jesse Arel. Yeah, butchered that one. This came out in 2008, maybe. This is a very long album. It's actually 2 CDs. I think it comes in at about an hour and a half. Now, I will say I like the way that they split up the 2 CDs. I like where they kind of split the album up as far as having to cut it into 2 pieces because the way that it's structured, this album is structured, that could almost play as 2 separate albums. So you don't feel disjointed or disconnected when you go from one CD or to the next. You could actually just listen to them on their own, and they kind of work that way. This band, I don't feel like that this is a shady band. They kind of get lumped in sometimes with some sketchy stuff, but I haven't personally seen anything sketchy from them, so it's unfortunate that they do get kind of lumped in sometimes with that stuff. There may be something I don't know, but I don't really harp or linger on that type of stuff too long. If I enjoy the music, I mean, I've got so much different kinds of lyrical themes and everything in the collection. When you have a collection as big as mine, there's gonna bound to be some sketchy members in bands somewhere. I mean, I'm sure I listen to stuff from bands that probably wouldn't even like me. So I mean, but I don't. That's just not something I linger on. If I enjoy it, I'm going to listen to it. This is all that I own from this band, but I will say that this is probably one of the stronger Horner releases. So if you're going to own something from this band, this is probably the way to go. This album for me, if someone wants to know what Finnish black metal sounds like, I could just hand them that. Like, there you go. That's what it should sound like. Next up, we have some Danish black metal, and just saying Danish. I'm on a diet, and I can't even focus on the music because now all I can think of is like a cheese Danish or something. So I'm miserable over here and I'm hungry. But we have Horned Almighty with Necro Spirituals. Fantastic release. Kind of punky black metal, very occult stuff, satanic stuff, but I do dig this quite a bit. And this is another one. This is the only Horned Almighty that I own. But if you're going to own one of their releases, this is probably the one that you already own or that you should own because I'm pretty certain that this was probably the most distributed of all their titles. This is turning into a long video. Next up, we have some more black metal out of this band is out of Chile. This is Horns with I'm going to butcher this as well. I'm Shine Truben Curzin Lights. Yeah. Uh, this was limited to 999 copies. It came out in 2011. Times are changing. If you release something, some underground black metal these days that's limited to 999 copies, you're going to be sitting on that stock until the day you die. But back then, you could pull it off. And I'm lucky to have one of these. It is some. I read a review one time about this is an album that you would want to light a candle and summon demons with, and I can kind of get that feel just from the music on that. Next up, we have some black metal out of Ireland. This is Horrenda with Diolotas. Yeah, uh, I do like this album. This is probably my favorite release from Horrenda, just for the simple fact that they kind of moved away from like the straight depressive suicidal black metal on this release. They kind of went into like this Irish folklore, Irish battle theme, and I really like this. I like the way that they went with this. So good stuff here. This was one of my early Bandcamp purchases. This came out. I'm going to say this was 2015 maybe, but um, actually it was 2019. So maybe I'm just way off. But I did purchase this on Bandcamp. I purchased it earlier than I did, but apparently I did not. And then the last two are both from the same band. This is Horrendous with their debut full length entitled The Chills. This is my favorite Horrendous release. I may be in the minority on that. This was released on Dark Descent Records. Kind of has this mix of technical death metal, has an old school death metal feel going on. This is like just prime Horrendous. I love this album. When I think of Horrendous, this is kind of what I want to go to. They get a little bit too proggy. The progressive death metal in their latter releases kind of turns me off a little bit. But the first two for me on Horrendous is where it's at. I have their second full length, Ecdysis, some kind of. I was reading that, and it's like judging from the artwork there, you can kind of get the feel that the album title is about uh, losing skin, something that like a condition of either flesh eating or losing skin or something along those lines. This is a solid release as well. I do like the Chills a little bit more, but this one definitely serves its purpose in the discography. I don't own the last two. Maybe at some point, I think I had them at one point and sold them, um, or traded them or something. But maybe at some point I will. I may have that like seller's remorse and get those releases back in the collection. It just hasn't hit me yet. When I think of Horrendous, I want to listen to the Chills. This one does get playtime occasionally, but those are the two for me when I think of that band. Finally made it through. Sorry that this video went so long. I was kind of long-winded today. We will be back next week for the next installment, and then we will wrap up the H's in the following week. I will try to get another video out this week as well. That's all I've got for today. I've taken up enough of your time. Stay classy, stay metal, and I will see you guys soon. I promise.